Hi, and welcome to Soul Clinic. My name is Chang, and I'm a shamanic healer. I thought it was a good moment to introduce what this channel is all about and explain the some of the concepts or methods behind it. And well, starting with the name Soul Clinic and me being a shamanic healer, it needs a little bit of under understanding and explanation what it means. Why I think it's a interesting juxtaposition of two words, soul and clinic, and I quite like the combination. And I want to clarify first that maybe a misconception of soul healing because I use the two word combinations, soul clinic and shamanic healer, in a same setting. You may get to me a misconception that the soul needs healing. It's not necessarily so. Well, at least in the conventional context of what people think of healing as. To me, in my perspective at least, the soul never needs healing. The soul is the biggest identifiable entity that we can associate with, an individualized entity, if you will. And because, in a sense, the soul is a spark or fragment of the God Self, the divinity that we carry within us, it is really invincible. You can't hurt the soul. But in for practical purposes, soul healing can make sense in certain contexts because how in many shamanic traditions there's a concept of soul fracture and soul retrieval. So what can happen in our lives, most likely we suffer through trauma, and because it can be shocking and damaging, a piece of our soul can leave the body to protect itself. At least that's how it is explained in the traditions, and it kind of goes against what I'm thinking, what I'm conceiving of a soul is, because I just said it's invincible. But anyways, maybe the soul can be fractured. I don't know. Well, it I said it was a fragment of the God self, so it can be fractured, yes. And so if you think of the word healing, it actually comes from the same root as whole, WHOLE, whole. And also that is related to the words such as holy, wholesome. So to heal is to make whole, at least to me, and to make holy. To make whole is to make holy. And so soul healing, in a sense, is calling back the pieces that used to belong to us, but in the process of living in this body on this earth, which can be quite difficult, we lose those pieces that we came into the body with. And so, in that regard, it is recovering, reclaiming the parts that were you, but you kind of lost. And so, when we put the pieces back together, just like how we complete a puzzle piece or a puzzle, collecting the pieces, the magnificence of our soul starts to reveal itself. So when we just look at a single piece of a puzzle, it's hard to make out what it's all about. So when we're fragmented, when our are fragmented, souls are fragmented, it is hard to appreciate the full magnificence of what that is. So when I use phrases such as the magnificence of your soul, many of you may not be able to fully appreciate the extent of how just how magnificent your soul is. And that is the whole purpose of, or the tagline I chose for the this channel, rebranded as Soul Clinic going forward. Reawakening to your soul's magnificence. And when we put together, as we put together the jigsaw puzzle pieces of our soul, the picture starts to reveal itself and it starts to make sense. We can start to make out what this was all about, or how the individual pieces fall into place and start to reveal the whole picture. And the whole picture is the magnificence of your soul. And so it can be said the process of healing is to the process of putting the pieces back together, and now most likely you are a, a puzzle set that's barely started. Okay. And one can say that's healing the soul. But as I said, it's like the whole picture was always there. The finished puzzle was always there. And at times, when we finish the puzzle, just for fun, we may just start it all over again. And in that sense, how the soul gets fractured in our physical lives and us having to put the pieces back together to reawaken or rediscover the magnificence of our souls, it's all a play. It's not necessarily something serious like a medical procedure that requires healing, although it can be categorized as healing if we use the definition of making whole again. And that is one of the biggest misconceptions I see out there, as from my experience operating as a shamanic healer around the soul and the concept or the expression that's called soul healing. So, although this channel is called Soul Clinic with Chang, what we're here is not necessarily performing an operation or um, fixing your soul. Your soul doesn't need fixing. Maybe it may be fractured, but it's all part of the scheme, part of the play. Then why even use the word clinic. And it's a wordplay on my part. Um, because clinic, yes, it is a place where you come. It's mostly operated by a doctor or medical professional. And then you come to a doctor and you get diagnosed and treated in many cases. And diagnosing and treating uh, can also be applied to not just medical situations, like medical emergencies, but in many situations in life. So I want this channel to be a place where you come and get a diagnosis in a sense that I can help you make sense of what is going on in your life and help you or me putting a finger on what you may have been having trouble identifying what the problem is or like what is going on, why am I feeling this way, why is life not going the way I thought um, it should, it would, or why am I not getting the life I want? Okay. And also, the word clinic being a wordplay comes from the fact that I enjoy soccer, playing soccer personally. And in soccer, there is a term clinical finish, like finishing at goal and scoring a goal. So for an attacking player, there's a soccer expression, clinical finish. Or in many other sports, I think the word clinical is used like a to express a textbook example of something well done, right? So I want to be that's my aspiration to be able to make a clinical diagnosis or a very incisive insight into your thing. So I want to do something clinically, not just in medical connotation, but also a um, sports connotation. Okay, so that's Soul Clinic, me being very precise and incisive, insightful. And the matter of the soul is different from how you think of diagnosing things in a modern Western medical context. So when we enter the realm of the soul, it's a very right brain kind of environment. So while I will be uh, doing my best to try to make it easy for you to make sense of things. The process of me doing it, and at least for me, this is my style, this is how I'm designed, and it took some time for me to rediscover and refine my approach to things. And from my actual experience working with clients, I am pretty confident at this point of my ability to deliver whatever is required in the moment. But it looks very different from how people, and even myself at times, would think it will look like. So it's a very mm, roundabout Not because I'm beating around the bushes or anything. It's a whole journey, and like a good adventure story. You don't know what's happening next, but at the same time, in the end, it all makes sense. And I at times resisted fully employing this methodology that I was born with, like I have a choice not to do it or do it something different. Well, you can try, but that is one of the um, core causes of all kinds of diseases, which is trying to do things as if you are someone different. Trying to do things in a way that is not yours. And I'll be talking about that a lot. Anyways, I need to be an example of that and be doing things my way, even if it may look radically different from what people are used to. But my contention is if conventional methods were working, functional, then people won't be suffering this much. Okay, so we need a different approach and we need to be open to something looking quite different than we expected. And that's a daily lesson that I personally need to live through. And I invite you, if you like spending time with me in this format, to go through this experience of shedding the old ways, of insisting that we know what is going to happen or how it's going to happen. So, letting go of that expectation is a big part. And one of the side effects, kind of unexpected, is that you feel much lighter and life becomes much more fun. And I keep smiling. I noticed that even when I thought I was talking about something serious, when I shot videos for this channel in the past, I noticed that the thumbnails that YouTube will pick automatically in that video will almost always be me smiling. So I don't know if the algorithm was picking up intentionally choosing me smiling, the still cuts of me smiling, but I don't know. Anyways, being having more fun is actually both the purpose and a signature of healing. Oh, I just remember something. Um, I wanted to clarify what what the word shamanic means. Okay. Um, I could have done earlier. I should have done earlier. I don't know. Anyways, the it can carry a lot of like mysticism or mystique around it. And yes, um, there's a part in shamanism that's not readily accessible to just average normal people. I'm not saying you're not normal. Well, I'm not. Anyways, to me, things are very simple, and I think it should be simple and elegant to work quite effectively. So to me, the word shamanic or a shaman just means bridging between the two worlds. And what are bridging between worlds? And in one way of expressing it can be said the seen world, the visible world, or the unseen world. Visible and invisible, seen or unseen. And the unseen world also carries quite of a mystique around it. But to me, um, it can also be said the outer world and the inner world. And we all have an inner world. And accessing that inner world can be as easy as closing your eyes. You can try it now. And try listening to me talking while the eyes closed. Which when I'm doing actually client work and a shamanic session, I'll just do this. And I discovered, although I learned a lot of techniques from my teacher in shamanic healing, these days I don't use elaborate rituals to get into this state because I discovered that the inner world is the source of our power and where we are all connected. So when we think of God as the omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent source of everything, in a maybe oversimplified way, the inner world is a direct pathway to that God source. And awakening to the fact that your inner world is much more real than the outer world, and also it is the source of the outer world. The inner world creates the outer world. That is one of the fundamental switches I'm here to help you make. And once you can actually make that switch, life becomes so much more fun. It becomes the adventure it was meant to be. So I help you transition as a shaman. What I do, the work of a shaman, is to help you shift your focus, primary focus, because we still need to function and live in the outside world. Your primary focus from the outside world to the inner world. Make that transition. That is my work. And it is very relevant and historically, we are living a historic moment where we transition from one mode of living to another. The whole human existence or human way of living is changing as we speak. And there's a potential we can manifest heaven on earth. And heaven on earth, in the context of how I was describing what shamanic work is like, is your outer life is sourced by the richness of your inner life, meaning that is what many people may think of manifestation is. You think something into being, you feel something into being, you just imagine your dream life and it manifests in the outer world. And despite what many influencers, YouTubers, authors, coaches, spiritual gurus out there are talking or saying about manifesting, and how some of them are living their dream life through being a master of manifestation, law of attraction. To me, it's child's play, what they're doing so far. And many of them, I think, are exaggerating how good they are or how good their life is. Anyways, you can be a master because the master is the God source living within you already. It's not an it's not you particularly, although the version of that mastery will look different because you're an individual. You're an individualized soul. And this individuated expression is what we're here to do in the form of our dream life, the masterpiece of a life that we will be living, you will be living once you make the recognition and full transition of your primary focus, sourcing this life, our life, from the omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent source within you. So I think this video is kind of complete. So much to say based on just 4 words: soul clinic and shamanic healer. Okay. And the process of that, of me doing a diagnosis and a treatment. Sometimes we will actually do outright like have a shamanic session, like the actual process of ritual, proper something like guided imagery, which is one of my favorite tools. But me talking this off, unscripted, spontaneous, is it can be a form of transmission, which haven't been much of my public practice, if you will, so far. But this is what will happen if you were to have a personal session with me. I just show up, and without too much preparation beforehand, I just show up, because too much preparation can make me live in my head too much and prevent me being open and spontaneous enough to be able to respond to what this moment requires. So I'll just show up and respond. That's all. There's all there's to it for most of us, really, because statistically 70% or even arguably 90% of us is designed to respond to life. And that is coming from human design, if you are familiar with that system, which I'll be talking about also going forward. But anyways, I think this is a good moment to wrap this video up. Really enjoyed this one too, and I'll see you in the next one.